50 years ago, Australia became the third country to launch a satellite into orbit from its own territory. But today, it's as if that never happened. I'm going to the International Astronomical Congress in Adelaide to find out the future of the Australian space program. But before then, we need to find out what went wrong, and I need to catch my flight. Oh, I'm sorry, Cassie, you can't come on this one. After that first launch, we've had quite an impact on space. Australia does have its own launch capabilities. The Woomera rocket range in South Australia was originally created by the British in order to test out their warheads. Then the Europeans took it over for 11 planned space missions. Today we use it to test out experimental rocket engines. We've also managed to piggyback a few space missions. That's given us a whole fleet of communication satellites, as well as 2 astronauts. Dr. Paul Scully became the first Australian into orbit when he launched on the Challenger space shuttle, and he's also the first guy to do it with a beard. Australia has remained involved with many countries' space programs. To see why, we're going to be heading through the North Ridge Tunnel. We'll turn on the radio, and you'll be able to hear why we're so important. So, as we've entered it, the radio has all gone to static. That's because radio waves can't travel through the 5-metre ceiling of the tunnel. Imagine what it's like when you don't have 5 metres, but an entire planet between you and the radio station you're trying to listen to. That's just what happens with space missions. Because of our position in the southern hemisphere, we were the ones who saw the landing of Apollo 11 and Neil Armstrong's first small step for man. We were able to listen to the Curiosity rover landing on Mars. And most interestingly, we're the only ones who can still talk to Voyager 2 as it heads outside of the solar system on its voyage into infinity. If you want to be able to talk to your spacecraft or make sure your satellite isn't about to fall out of orbit, then you need Australia's tracking stations on board the program. Because of this, we've actually had a huge influence on international space law. Along with some other UN countries, we've come up with the treaties on outer space. Basically, what this means is that space is the inheritance of all humankind, and you can't turn it into the next war zone. So, basically, no nukes in space. If you see a stranded astronaut, make sure to help them out, and no secret Nazi moon bases. Remember those European missions? Well, that's where things started to go wrong. Of the 11 planned missions, only 9 of them ever made it to the launch pad. Of those, the first 5 blew up at various stages. At rocket number 9, it was going to launch. Everything worked, it launched perfectly, went through the air fine, got into space, even got into orbit, and then promptly fell out of it. Taking the hint, they packed off the last rocket to French Guam, where a static discharge in one of the main tanks made it blow up on the launch pad. After the Europeans packed up shop, in the 1980s, Australia developed its own space program. But unfortunately, its $4 million a year price tag became too expensive for the government at the time, and it was abolished in 1996. From first appearance, it might appear as if Australian space is grounded, but I think a better term is gone underground. West Australia is developing the Square Kilometre Array, which will become the largest telescope ever created, which will help find out new things about the cosmos, as well as maybe finding aliens. Universities are offering courses in space and aerospace engineering, and are launching programs like SpaceEye and Skyhopper. It's an exciting time in space, but I think it's going to get even better. Every year, the best minds in space make their way to the International Astronomical Congress, and I'll be joining them. I think we're out to find out where Australian space is headed. I'll see you in Adelaide. I've just arrived in Adelaide. The conference centre is behind me, and I picked up my ticket. Next week's episode, we're going to be looking at the future of Australian spaceflight as we talk to experts from around the world at the conference. Make sure to subscribe so as not to miss it. In the meantime, this has been James Dingley from the Atomic Frontier. Keep looking up.